What is up, my spooky mates of YouTube? Marcel from Aussie Horror here, and we are back with some coverage on an actual movie for a change. It's been a while since I've spoken about a movie, but I just saw Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes in the cinema today, and I've got some thoughts on it. This is more going to be me expressing some thoughts on the movie rather than a comprehensive, shot-by-shot review of the film. So if this sounds good to you, let's get into the video. So the first thing I wanted to say when talking about this movie is the fact that the first 20 or so minutes, and there may be some spoilers here, so just be cautious if you're listening to my thoughts on this. The first 20 or so minutes of the movie were kind of a drag for me. I wasn't getting into it, and I was like, I really hope that this isn't a trend for the rest of the movie, because the movie goes for 2 hours and 25 minutes, 145 minutes long. It's quite a lengthy movie. It's not like it's not Titanic length or Lord of the Rings length, but it is a long movie. And another thing I just wanted to clear up quickly is that I know this channel is called Aussie Horror, but I thought about it like this. If I were to review the original Planet of the Apes movies, considering how amazingly campy and cheesy they are, I don't think anybody would question it. So it stands to reason that I can review the latest movies in the series. Just because they are a different beast entirely, but they still have, some of the elements that made the original so great. Without that cheese factor, they're more blockbusters. Thoughtful blockbusters. Anyways, back to the movie. I thought going into this that during that 20-25 minute period, I was like, oh man, this is gonna be a slog, I've got a feeling. But my expectations and that hunch that I had was wrong. It ended up being quite a good movie, and keep in mind that first 20 minutes of the movie aren't really indicative of the rest of the movie or the tone of the rest of the movie, because once the action sort of starts, it doesn't really let up, and I felt that the more contemplative moments in the film were quite earned, and the voice acting in this film and the motion capture, the special effects, it was incredible. Peter Macon in particular, who also stars in The Orville and voices one of the characters in Family Guy, his portrayal of the orangutan Raka is by far, when this movie gets amazing. It's about the moment that character is introduced that you really start investing yourself in this story, because the character of Raka is open-minded, not narrow-minded in any way, shape or form, and is more accepting of these humans in the world, and he looks at them with quite a bit of fondness, because Caesar's law is one of humans and apes living side by side together, and there's some sort of social critique in here about living side by side with one another that I thought was quite beautiful as well. And the film does explore that in a really sort of profound way, insofar as you can explore something like that in a sort of sci-fi flavored action movie, if that makes sense. So Peter Macon's performance in particular is fantastic. Owen Teague, who plays the Ape of Noah, his performance is also good, not quite on the level of Peter Macon's, but I was blown away when I was thinking about it. I was like, and I know him as an actor from the Stand television series. He played Harold Lautner, and during that entire series I was reminded of Jim Carrey, just his gesticulating and the way he moves his face in particular. Maybe that is why he got cast in this role, because of how animated his face can be. It reminded me so much of Jim Carrey's in The Stand. It's crazy. So I can understand why they would get him in a movie like this with the motion capture. Having said that though, his role in this movie isn't very animated. He's quite a subdued character until near the end of the film. So maybe in the next two films, and it does feel like this is meant to be the launching point for more feature films, and that's one of my very minor criticisms of this film. It did feel like they were either gonna make two separate movies, or they had to make one really long movie and trimmed it down. And I did read some article about there being like 40 or so minutes of deleted scenes that they're going to include in a director's cut. And I really got the impression that this was meant to be a longer movie, that they trimmed mercilessly simply to get it out there and to appeal to a wider audience. I know the Marvel movies in particular have made inroads in sort of conditioning people to appreciate and sit through longer films, but I still think that a movie like this that doesn't have all of that character investment, we're sort of starting from a blank slate here with only some minor references to the previous movies with Caesar. It's still more of a launching point, and for that reason, I can understand why they would want to trim a lot of the excess fat from the movie. But in doing so, you sort of have two different flavors of this movie. You've got the scenes that lead up into the kingdom portion of the film, and I don't want to spoil too much or say too much, but when this is called the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, you expect like an animal kingdom, like a literal kingdom of these apes, and you do get that to a small degree. But the majority of this film is spent on like a quest, so to speak, rather than inside the kingdom. So once you actually get to that kingdom, it's almost like an afterthought, or at least they filmed way more that was meant to be in the kingdom, but they just didn't include in the movie. Overall though, the special effects were phenomenal. The environments in particular, it looked amazing. And it's sort of like, I'm almost something of an anarcho-primitivist myself, which is, I know that's cringe, but just hear me out. When I was like watching this movie, I'm like, wow, this is sort of like a vision of what we would all sort of want the world to be like, you know, lush green, very sparsely populated. So I sort of got that impression as well, that like there's some influences here. I got some Last of Us vibes, and you can tell that this has been influenced by a lot of the post-apocalyptic media like The Walking Dead. So yeah, special effects were phenomenal. The environments, the setting was great. And overall, the movie felt a lot shorter than it was. This 145 minutes flew by, which is great considering the first 20 minutes were a slog. So if you've got any hesitance to see this movie, just keep in mind again that the first 20 minutes, you've got to sit through them to get to the, you know, the good stuff in the movie. And so for the time being, those are my thoughts on the Kingdom, the Planet of the Apes. I'll do a more comprehensive review eventually. I still have to do a review on the next vintage horror film as well. I hadn't forgotten about those either. Atom Age Vampire, I think it is.
You will freeze as you watch a warped scientist become transformed into a godless beast when his bloody scalpel probes the forbidden secrets of a woman's flesh in Atom Age Vampire.
Anyways, if you've seen this movie, let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. And until the next video, my name is Marcel from Aussie Horror. Stay spooky, and I'll catch you guys around.